We got the C30 back in here. We're gonna start getting this 4-link rear end knocked out. It's the Air Slam It DIY triangulated 4-link kit. Went ahead and got the leaf springs yanked off on this side, pulled the shocks. I gotta pull a couple more brackets, like pull this leaf spring assembly, pull these overload brackets, get these hanger brackets out of here. I really need to go ahead and just yank that exhaust out of the way so I can have it all open. I haven't really pulled measurements yet. I'm probably gonna have to cut this cross member out. I got a big I-beam assembly that I'm gonna put in here, or square tube. I haven't really decided. I got both of them in the truck. But yeah, we're getting this yanked out of here and squared up. Right now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to set the axle on the bottom of this frame rail. I'm going to kind of mock up the 4-link and everything because the frame still hangs too low down there to get it down as low as I truly want. So I'll probably just tack weld the axle right here to the center and then mock up all my brackets and everything, and then I will chop the centers out of these notches, run it through articulation, make sure there's no binding, make sure the angles and everything look good. But yeah, I got to go ahead and get this spring assembly ripped out of here, get these couple exhaust hangers, couple random brackets and saddle mounts and stuff out, and then get this frame dropped down and see what we're looking at, and get the kit out, the 4-link kit out, and start pulling some measurements and mocking it up and seeing where we can go from there. But yeah, we'll get some more torching going on and tap back in. Now that we got all the leaf springs out and everything, we got a pile accumulating over here. Leaf springs, saddles, like for your bolts, bump stops, everything else. Got it all out. Ran out of acetylene, so I can't get these last 3 perches off. I'm gonna go see Tractor Supply, do the bottle exchange. They keep saying that they've been out of stock of acetylene for like 3-4 weeks, so I really don't know what's up with that. But I just started mocking up the triangulated 4-link. They come with aftermarket saddles to put here, but I think I'm just going to utilize that way. I ain't got to worry about making sure that when I weld on new saddles they're squared up and everything else. I think I'm just going to reuse these. I talked to one of my buddies that's lamb door, and he did the same thing. So I'll just get bushings made, make some to put in between there just to fill the gap, because these 4-link bars are a little narrower. So I'll just get some bushings made in there. And so I mocked that up. I'm kind of mocking up where I want these to lay in and out, the angle on it. I got the axle set in here and tack welded. I measured it left to right, forward and backwards to make sure the axle is squared on the frame and centered. And then I tack welded it in place just to help me be able to mock everything up, tack things in place, whatnot. Then I could lob these centers out, I could raise it, can extend my bars, set my pinion angle and everything, get an idea where it's at before I weld anything out. So right now I'm just doing that. I know this cross member's got to come out. I'm already looking at it. The drive shaft's already about to hit it. So I'm going to have to do some kind of cross member setup here. Haven't figured that out yet. I got to pull the spacer right here. There's a drop bracket. Got the carrier bearing bolts too. The drive shaft's already at an upward angle like this, and I'm not even low yet. So I'm going to have to pull that out so it raises the drive shaft up closer to that cross member. But for now, because I still need to be able to roll this in and out whenever I have customer jobs, and I got a couple coming up in the next couple days, I'm going to get these lower brackets squared up on the axle. The way I'm going to do it, the way it makes sense to me and whatnot, I have the axle set up straight, the pinion flush with the floor right now. The pinion angle is at a 90 degrees with the floor. So then I'm going to weld all these brackets at a 90 degree on the axle. And so I know that those brackets and everything are squared there. And then that way, whenever I need to adjust my pinion angle and everything, I can just rock it back and forth because those brackets will be at 90 degrees and I can go off of that. That's what makes sense in my head. If it doesn't end up working, I got to change it, then it will all be tacked on and I can reset it. But that's kind of how it's playing out in my head. I got to figure this out because the differential's not centered, and it's a 1 ton rear end or 3/4 ton, whatever it is. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put that 4-link there and it'll clear up here on articulation. This one, obviously, I have enough axle tube. This one, I'm not sure. I might have to modify a bracket to go right here on the ear of the hog head and then put one on the axle tube. I'm going to have to figure that out because I got to find out what I'm going to do here on the cross member, center it, get brackets and an idea of brackets, and then I can set my bars how I want to. I don't want to go for outwards, inwards, because this hog head already sets up so high, and I'm going to have to chop the floor and go over this, and I really don't want 4-link bars on top of that, and welding to that is just not very practical with the shape and design. So I'm going to get these lower brackets mocked up, get them tacked in place at 90 and everything, pull a bunch of measurements, make sure they're even on both sides, blah, blah, blah. About 30 measurements and then 1 tack weld, 30 measurements, 1 tack weld. So yep, we're going to go through, get these brackets on, and then we'll go from there. I've been here contemplating, and I'm really not sure. So I got these lower brackets for the 4-link bars. I got them tacked on, made sure they were 90 in line with the pinion angle. Set them at the same lengths, measured them in and out, and whatnot. Got those set on there and tacked. And I've been sitting here trying to figure out which route I want to go for these upper bars, whether I want to go in to out or out to in. And I hate trying to weld to these differentials and stuff. It's just, without preheating it and everything, they don't weld the best. But I'm sitting here thinking, and with the bed floor, I just wanted to make a single hump over this here. And honestly, looking back now, I should have just bought a parallel setup with a Watts link and just called it done. But I don't know. Here we are, regardless. And so the cross member is going to be in the way of the drive shaft. We still got, that's a 10-inch notch, a 10 or 12-inch notch, plus the distance there on the frame rail. That cross member is going to hit. I already got to raise that up there. I got to chop the frame under the cab. So the more I think about it, I don't have much room to attach my ears to here unless I straddle it here, and then trying to do the same there and just making it parallel. It'd just be weird, and then I'd have to mount those in the center, and that's where the drive shafts would hit. So I'd have to make a riser. I'd have to come straight off that riser, and I really don't want to chop the entirety of the bed out. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna tack on a couple cross supports on the frame to keep it all squared up, and I'm going to lob this cross member out. I'm going to plate the frame probably 8 to 10 inches, and then I'll weld these tabs inside the frame rail, and I'll come up and I'll just weld to this differential, and then that way, whenever it articulates up, the drive shaft and everything won't interfere with the hoop or anything. At least this is what I'm thinking in my head. And depending on how much this interferes with the bed, because I got a distance from this rail up until the floor of the bed, but I'm going to body the bed and drop it 2 inches, I believe, to match the pinch welds. So I'm gonna have to go take some measurements. But if anything, I might just do a 45 over and a 45 down, so I can still roll stuff over it in the bed and have plenty of utilization of the bed still. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. Like I said, I got these set. Obviously I can adjust them or anything like that. I just went and picked up some angle gauges, and that way I can check the angles of my upper bars. I can set my pinion angle exactly where I want and just verify everything squared away. And these are already 45, so I can know that these are both even at least. So if I plate the frame, this is just how I'm thinking it in my head. They still didn't have any acetylene. I've gone to 2 different Roll Kings. So I might just have to old-fashioned grinder and a punch and get this cross member out, which I absolutely do not want to do. But I don't really see any other choice. Got all this steel from my buddy for like 50 bucks or something. Got this big thick I-beam that I intended on using to make some kind of support, because I want this thing sturdy, because I'm going to drag the frame straight off of it. Like, I'm going to bounce this thing off the pavement. It may not be a mini truck because it's so big, but I'm going to treat it like a mini truck. I mean, they're supposed to be on the ground throwing sparks. So that's that. I'm going to lob these perches off for the leaf springs, get that out of there. But right now, in my head, I think this is the route I'm going to go. Regardless, this cross member is going to have to come out because it's going to hit on the drive shaft. So it's either that, plate it here, and then cross member here, and then obviously you're bracing on this, or build a big hoop, and I don't know. But I really need to get this chopped out and put a block of wood in there to set my ride height. And I really need to get this cross member out, and then raise that so I can see where everything lays and get everything set up. A lot of work, especially for not having acetylene. I can't just start torching stuff. But it's got to get done, so I'm going to call a couple more places and see if I can get a acetylene tank, because, man, I really don't want to sit here with grinder wheels and flapper wheels. But that's where we're laid out. Nothing to it but to do it now, so let's see how much more we can molest this truck. Well, I didn't record a couple things. Scratch all the stuff I said before. I got the cross member taken out. I got the frame section cut out. I got like the shock gears taken off. Everything. Got this thing dropped down. And I was kind of mocking up how I want to do things, thinking about whether I want to go from the inside out to the axle, from the frame to the hog head. Just going through all the different things and stuff. And then I noticed that since I was lazy and I kind of eyeballed these at 90, I went and bought this from Harbor Freight. It was like $5-10, little angle gauge. And I'm sitting there mocking everything up, and I realized that I was about 2 degrees off from actually getting it lined up perfect. So I went ahead and lobbed these brackets back off, and now you can see I got these sitting at 90, and then if I throw it on this differential, which is parallel with the output shaft, it's sitting at 90 as well. So I went, re-welded these lower brackets on at perfect 90 degrees after setting the rear end parallel with the ground. Then I welded those brackets back on parallel with the ground. Got the cross support in, chopped the frame sections out, and I'll drop it down here in a second. But I just wanted to say that just go buy this from Harbor Freight, $5-10. Do it right the first time, so you're not like me and have to cut these brackets back off again. And yeah, I don't know if I added it in the last video. I raised the drive shaft to take the 4-inch block out. Right now it's tack welded, but I tack welded a piece of flat stock in there, drilled it and put nuts and bolts so I could raise the drive shaft up. I just got a new transmission cross member that I'm probably going to end up cutting these ears off and putting the ears on the inside so I can tuck it up in the frame rail. I don't like the bolts hanging down. But let me get it mocked up, what the game plan is here, and we'll go over it. So this is a rough mock-up, but I decided that since I was thinking about it, and if I went from the frame rail to the differential, I'm already going to plate the frame in, but it would put the bars at a steep upward angle, and then the bottom bars almost parallel, and the geometry it wouldn't flow right on articulation. So I'd honestly need to put pedestals up on the frame and put the top bars up here on the frame, and at that point I might as well just do a cross member. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some channel, or I might just use this thick I-beam, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cross member over, and I'm going to notch it in the center to clear the drive shaft, and then I'm going to put my 4-link bars. I'm going to take these brackets, I'm going to chop them down and weld them directly to that cross member. Then I'm going to come out here to the axle, and I'm just going to put them right here. Have plenty of room. And then for the bags on the back, I'm going to build a rear cross member that comes out, hugs around, and ties back in. But I don't want to do like most people do and like weld it on or anything like that. because like if I need to rebuild the rear end or do anything down the line, I don't want to be stuck with a welded on pedestal here. So I'm going to weld brackets out. I'm going to put a plate there and then put some grade 8 bolts, and then I'll put the other arch here, and then I'll just do rear mount bags, and I'll put my upper plates here when I build put an actual cross member support on here, and then I'll put the lower mounts down there, and it'll just be a rear bag setup. I'll have plenty of room up here. I'll have my 4-link bars, the lower bars using the factory shackle mounts, saddles, whatever you want to call it, and it should be good. I have not centered my axle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use where it's at as the ride height. So right now it is sitting on the frame under the cab because I need to I need to shorten the frame. So I don't know if my light is going to catch it, but you can see it's sitting on the frame. I'm going to have to pull the fuel tank, I'm going to do a fuel cell, and I'm going to cut 4 inches out of the frame rail and then box the frame rail in so I can sit it down. So basically where the truck is sitting at now, I'm going to use as ride height. So it's about 3 inches, 3.5 inches from pinch weld to the floor right now. That's ideal ride height for me, and it's sitting on the front cross member and the 2 frame rails. So I'm going to use this as my ride height. I'm going to make sure that my frame is even on both sides, and then I'm going to center the axle up and everything, get my pinion angle set, and I'm just going to weld a piece of right angle here and a piece of right angle there, set it right here at this ride height with the right pinion angle and everything, and then that way I can set all my bars at the same length. I can put this cross member where it needs to be, and then I can just weld it all in. That's what I've come to in my head. That's what I'm going to go with. And so yeah, that's that. When I come to putting the bed on and everything, I'll figure that out. Another thing I did was I put the jack under the differential and I jacked it up real high. And since it's a 1-ton rear end, I'm going to have to put my rear support a little farther out. Might put it on the corners instead on the inside because it barely catches that differential cover on this lip. And secondly, whenever I had these mocked up on top of the differential, full articulation, put my heims there above the bottom surface of my notch here. And granted, the pumpkin might push up a little past that. I can address that when it comes to that with the bed, but I didn't want to have 4-link bars sticking up over my axle. So when I had the bed in there, I had to have some kind of weird plates or cut slits for the 4-link bars to clear. I want to fully plate in the whole bed so I can utilize it and haul in stuff and whatnot. I think it just looks a lot cleaner. Take your time and do it right. So this is going to put my bars down lower at a better angle so I can run them kind of parallel within like 1 degree of the lower bar, 2 degree maybe. And then they're going to keep them down low below all this. And if anything, I might just have to slope the bed out down. So like 45 a plate up, come over and hug the back. So, and I'll probably make the plate in the bed removable. So like if I need to service any of this, adjust it and whatnot. And also whenever you set your top bars, don't bottom them out. Screw them out like halfway or a third of the way so that if you need to adjust your pinion angle or anything, they're not already bottomed out. You're not having to move this whole cross member or anything. You can just adjust your bar and tune it. So that's where it's at. I'm going to get the frame blocked up perfectly level on both sides, left to right. Not necessarily rake because I can fine tune that a little bit out with the adjustment on the 4-link bars. But I'm going to get the frame blocked up, set. I'm going to push the axle, get it centered, get my pinion angle set where I want, and then start laying bars on, welding the cross member in, and hopefully get this rear buttoned up. And then I got to find some tubing to build my rear cross member, and then I got to find some 3-inch by 4-inch channel so I can box my frame up there. That's where it's at. That's the game plan in my head at least. And we'll get this mocked up and start getting it all set in and see where it goes. I hope it works. This is what we got. This is what we came up with. I'm going to finish out this part of the video and start a separate one on doing the bag mounts and stuff. But here's where we're sitting at. So what I did was I got the axle set where I wanted for ride height, like I said, and then I centered it left to right, made sure it was even on both sides from the frame rail, front and back, so you make sure your axle's not twisted like this or anything. So you set these bars at the same length It puts your axle pretty even for the most part, especially since I'm using factory saddles. I just made these bars the same length and it kept it straight. Then I squared it up in here and set the pinion angle parallel with the ground, so I can all just zero, and then if I need to adjust it to match the truck, I can just rotate these upper bars. But then I tack welded it in place. I made sure my frame rails were both even to the ground, front and back, so I know the frame's even. Centered it, tack welded it in place with the right pinion angle, as you can see. So that locked the axle in. I was good there. My lower bars were set. We're at already 2 degrees or 3 degrees of upward angle, so I know that this axle will not travel much farther back, if any at all, because it's about to go on the downward swoop. So I just set it close to the notch, so I didn't have to worry about it coming forward too much and bottoming out in the corner. So I pushed it all the way back and tack welded into that place. Tuck my bars. I set these upper bars the same length as these bottom bars, and I cut these brackets down to get my angle on the cross member. So with these bars the same length as these, I kind of mocked it all up and got an idea where the cross member needed to be. I tack welded it into place. It's just tack welded right now. I'm going to clean it up a little better. I'm going to gusset the front and back just because it's going to be a lot of load and strain on this, just beating on it and dragging. So I just want to make sure this is sturdy as can be. Notched it for the drive shaft. This stuff is thick. I ain't worried about this little bit of contact space here, like I said, and I'm going to gusset it, so not too worried about it. But my lower bars are at 3 degrees upward angle, so I matched it parallel on the top. I set these tabs in the center of the axle so that the center line is going to be even on both sides, basically. It doesn't have to be 100%. Obviously, there's going to be some tiny bit of deflection variation, but it's not that big of a deal. Set these tabs center and straight, and then I put my angle meter on here, and I raised and lowered it until I matched with these with these brackets my 3 degrees angle on this one. I'd measured inwards to make sure I get the same angles on both sides so they're not fighting each other. And I think from my inner frame rail, because I didn't want to go out to here because you could have some variation on not centered or anything. These are fixed. These are part of the chassis. This is what it's all squared off of. So I measured from inner frame rail out. I think it was 8.5 inches to the face here. So I went to that frame rail, measured in 8.5 inches to the face there, scribed it. And that way, whenever I cut these brackets down and moved it and everything, I could sand it down and fit it to where it hugs tight against that cross member at 8.5. And then I tack welded it in, You can look at the angles here. I don't know the exact, like they say they want like minimum 40, like ideally like 45-ish or something like that. I have it all on my phone. I don't know exactly. Like I set my angle meter up and I tried to calculate it doing the mathematical equation, and I honestly just gave up. So I just know that these are inwards about as much as I can get it. I could have probably got another couple degrees if I wanted to finesse it, but it should work. This is my first time ever doing this, so I'm not saying I know what I'm doing. I'm just documenting my process here. So it's all tacked in and everything. I got to get this blocked up because I got to take these wheels off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my bars and everything, cut my tack welds, and I'm going to swing it down. I'm going to burn out all my tabs, my lower brackets, this cross member, these tabs, gusset it and everything. But before I weld all that out, I'm going to cut these tabs off, and I'm going to articulate the axle up and down. Make sure it doesn't seem like it's binding up or fighting itself or anything, that it's pretty even flowing up and down. It's not throwing the pinion angle way off like I calculated something wrong. Like I said, I've double checked everything multiple times. My angles for the bars side to side and everything. I know for a fact all 4 bars are parallel in this matter. The only deviation that I might have is my slight angles here. But like I said, it went off the frame 8.5, off the frame 8.5. So theoretically, it should all work. I think I should have plenty of room here for even any deflection that these bolts won't hit. I'm pretty confident on that. So that's where we're at. That's what we're gonna roll with. Like I said, this is ideally the ride height of the truck. So sitting on the frame in the front, and then I'm gonna body drop the bed to be even with the pinch weld. So I'm hoping that all this calculating and stuff worked in my head. I thought it over, changed it multiple times. So this hole is not centered up. Don't ignore that. I'm gonna take a grinder and I'm gonna even that out because it's bugging my OCD. But yep, that's where we're at. That's where it's sitting. So I'll wrap this video up. I'm gonna, like I said, I gotta weld everything out, and I'm gonna start making my pedestal to mount my bags. I'm gonna make the cross member that comes out and around, and then I can make my upper cross member, do the bag mounts. But I'm thinking, I got high hopes that it should articulate fine and everything and be pretty solid. So that's that. I'll get started on the rest of this and burning everything out and see where else it goes.